Hello, welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. And we're getting closer to the football season starting up again. And we'll talk about the 1980 New Orleans Saints football team. I have that subject on my list of shows to do in the future. And now I'm down to one more on the list. And then I need more ideas on shows to do in the future. Like I said, shows about preserving history, especially obscure aspects of history. So I need some help, people. Any of you out there, any viewers, have an idea on something about history, especially obscure aspects of history. If it's feasible for me to research it, I will base a show on it. And with that being said, we'll talk about the 1980 Saints football team. Worst in their franchise history. The 1979 team, I believe, was the best they had. Ended up with an 8-8 record, and they looked promising. But I'm going to go over the games they played that year. September 7th, they hosted the 49ers and lost 26-23. Next week, they played at Chicago. They lost to the Bears 22-3. That was on the 14th. On the 21st of September, they hosted the Buffalo Bills and lost 35-26. The 28th of September, they played at Miami and lost 21-16. If I remember right, that was a kind of a controversial game because at the very end of the game, I believe Archie Manning threw a touchdown, and it was called back for offensive pass interference. When it turned out it wasn't pass interference, the Saints should have won that game. So that was actually a close game, probably one of the better games they played that year. Next week, they hosted the Arizona Cardinals, and lost 40-7. That was still the St. Louis Cardinals back then. It was. And then on the 12th, they played Detroit and lost 24-13. On the 19th of October, they hosted Atlanta and lost 41-14. On the 26th of October, they lost 22-14 to the Redskins. On the 2nd of October, they lost at Los Angeles to the Rams 45-31. And then 9th of November, they hosted the Eagles and lost 34-21. On the 16th, they lost the Atlanta Falcons at Atlanta 31-13. 24th, they lost at home to the Los Angeles Rams 27-7. And then the 30th, they hosted the Vikings and lost 23-20. And then on the 12th or the 7th of December, they played at San Francisco and lost 38-35. That was one of those games where the Saints actually had a 35-7 lead, and I believe Joe Montana led the team back and ended up winning the game in overtime. Okay, Week 15 at New York Jets at Shea Stadium, the 14th of December. Finally, the Saints win a football game by 1 point, 21-20 over the New York Jets. And Week 16, they end the season hosting the New England Patriots and losing 38-27. Dick Nolan was a coach of that team and ended up compiling a 15-29 record before being fired following an 0-12 start in the 1980 season. He was fired from the Saints on Wednesday, November 26, 1980. Dick Stanfeld took his place for the rest of the season and had a 1-3 record with them. The next year, they hired Bum Phillips. He lasted from 1981 to 1985 with a record of 27-42. It wasn't until Jim Mora took over that team that they finally made the playoffs, and they had a 93-74 record with the Saints, and he finally got frustrated and quit after 10 years with that team. And that was what I was able to find out on the 1980 Saints football team. I do remember one thing. I believe it was a game where they came up with the idea of putting bags on their head, unknown fans. People were putting like paper bags over their heads so people couldn't see who they were in the stands. I remember that, and I also remember another thing. Some man had a couple of Saints tickets, and he wanted to get rid of them, and he decided he didn't want to be going to any more games that year because of how awful the team was. So he figured he would put the 2 tickets on the windshield wiper of his car, and thinking somebody would take them. Well, he comes back, somebody put 2 more on his windshield wipers. Anyway, that's how bad that team was that year. I do remember it. And that being said, like, subscribe, share. As always, thanks for watching.